My name is Dhiraj Murthy, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my article, Big Data Solutions on a Small Scale, Evaluating Accessible High-Performance Computing for Social Research, which is going to be appearing in the journal Big Data and Society. One of the things I find interesting about studying social media, and a lot of my work has been on social media, is just how fast growth has been. So at the start of this article, one of the things I position, I think is important for understanding some of the arguments I'm trying to make in terms of making accessible big data research methods, is that size. For example, Facebook is now at 1.32 billion monthly active users. Twitter's at 271 million active monthly users, generating over 400 million tweets a day, and Instagram is at 200 million monthly active users. Another author in Big Data and Society, Roger Burrows and Mike Savage, in their article After the Crisis, Big Data and the Methodological Crises of Empirical Sociology, talk about how there still remains challenges in terms of how to grapple with these vast amounts of data. If you take these numbers, that's just monthly active users. But if you look at the amount of data each user is generating, that truly is big data. Now, one of the things that sociologists and social science researchers in general face as a challenge is how do you understand and analyze that with the tools we've had traditionally in our craft. Most of the time we've used with large data sets such as census and other large data sets relational databases, which have been absolutely fine and successful in these contexts. But when you look at the enormity in terms of the scale that these monthly active users are generating, they're tweeting, they're Facebooking, they're doing all these things, how do we approach actually able to formulate a way in which to study the social interactions that are taking place? So one of the things I have noticed is there's an increasing demand for social researchers to have systems to be able to do this rather than the ways in which we've done it in the past through traditional relational databases. So one of the things this article explores is, can we take technologies that were previously only used in very expensive either research or commercial settings? So I'm talking really powerful big data computing solutions that generally per machine in a cluster cost $50,000 or more. Can we use open source and other free software to create solutions where we can look at clusters that are $3,000 to $5,000? So we're talking about a tenth of the cost or less. And in this article, what I did was came up with a solution along with my co-author, Sawyer Bauman, and others who collaborated on the project, with a system which is $3,000 with a stock Dell PowerEdge server, and was able to use that to collect a phenomenal amount of Twitter data. Now, the reason this is important is because tweets, if you took the whole Twitter Firehose stream, it's 1.5 terabytes per day. So we weren't looking to collect that. We used the free service of the Spritzer stream, which is about 1% of Twitter data. And in the first month, we were able to capture over 150 million metadata-enriched tweets. So this metadata contained a tremendous amount of material that could be studied by social researchers. And we're consuming about 300 gigs worth of storage space. And per hour, just to kind of bring this into context, we're looking at 191,315 tweets. Now, I could rattle on about all these statistics, but the important thing to take away is we're looking at a truly high order of Twitter data that we're trying to study. Now, in the past, you had to have a lot of money to be able to ingest all these tweets and then study them if you wanted to do social network analysis, or you wanted to do some sort of frequency analysis, or you wanted to look at any form of relationships. So what I did in this configuration, using Hadoop, using Hive, using Cloudera, and other off-the-shelf, very easily extensible and configurable solutions, was to be able to create a solution where we were able to do very complex social analysis. For example, one of the ways in which I've often studied social media data is through the use of n-grams. So statistically, we can look at the frequency of how often one word comes about, or 2 words bigrams, or 3 words trigrams. And we were able to, using this very powerful system, look at the top 10,000 unigrams, bigrams, trigrams, and quadgrams, so up to 4 words per language across an entire month. In the past, when we've tried to do this with relational databases, we'd have to leave the server running overnight. And many of these queries really only took a couple of hours, which was a huge performance increase. And we could tweak these queries and be able to run things much faster. All in all, we were looking at least a 300% increase when we ran queries, which made our ability to actually study interesting social questions so much faster. And I think that's a really important thing, because if you've got all this data and you're sat running queries for 24 hours or 48 hours, you're not able to move as fast as the data is moving, and it's very hard to formulate meaningful research questions and to study them. So one of the big things that this article has really tried to do is make an argument to social researchers out there that using big data technologies such as Hadoop, which often comes up in the literature, is not something just for computer science or for big research labs, but even one individual researcher or a small group with minimal technical expertise, such as in our project, can utilize what we call a small-scale big data technology that previously designed for the large scale. And if your project grows, you can add more clusters, again, for a very cheap price point, to be able to deal with the big data that's out there. So from a larger sociological point of view, one of the arguments I've tried to make is, if we don't look at these type of technologies, this data will keep increasing, and our ability to make meaningful sociological analyses of this in a sort of Millsian sociological imagination will decrease. So there's a fundamental sociological argument from the point of view of increasing our knowledge of what is being constructed, not only in social media, but in our social worlds more generally, in terms of social trace data. It's extremely important for us to think about solutions such as this, our ability to use small-scale big data solutions that come from a large-scale environment. Thank you very much.